right now. So I went to go help them for, 5 minutes, but then got a little sidetracked.
So you teach them also relax, just relax, and you guide them to practice. So, in the second part of our lesson, we will understand the brief history of yoga, tradition. We will also understand some of the teachers, names of the teachers, and the text. And we will understand the very nature of yoga. So, you see that when we talk of yoga, meditation, breathing practices, mudra, what are the other practices? Mudra and asana, yama, niyama, and like this, we have more than 52 groups of practices. So, all included, the name is given Eastern Wisdom. Why it is known as Eastern Wisdom? The America, our country, and a North American continent, we say it, and including the Europe, it is a Western world. And the India is known as the Eastern side. So that is why we say it is Eastern wisdom. Clear? Now, Eastern wisdom is more than 6,000 years old. What it means? We are living in 2021 plus another 4,000 years. That much old is the origin of yoga. What is the lifespan of a human being? The maximum lifespan, maybe 100 years, 120 years. So when we see that, it is very old. Now understand one thing. Whether a thing is very old or new, it doesn't matter. What matters is the truth. If there is a truth of the real nature of our real self is the same 6,000 years ago and now, what matters is the truth. So yoga discovers the true nature, and that true nature did not change over these years. You got it? So when true nature does not change, it means what our masters have taught us is still relevant today. Clear? It is still relevant because truth doesn't change. If the truth changes, it becomes false. It remains the same in past, in present, in future. It remains same at any location. Clear? So, what matters when we say yoga is 6,000 years old, or so it does not mean that yoga has become old. It is still new, it is very much relevant today. Now, second point, what science and art of living? What is yoga? It is the science and art of living. Why it is science? It follows a logical, rational method. That is why I always see that I put a question and I answer. So teaching of yoga is highly rational. And why it is art? It also invokes, it takes you to peace, happiness, love, wisdom. Did I answer the question? Science and art of living. Purely science. See, for example, When we practice asana, so Patanjali, our great master, says, what is asana? Then he explains the method of practicing the asana. Then he gives the result of the asana. So, what is that? Sthir Sukham Asanam, Sanskrit. So, what is the asana? He says steadiness of the body and relaxation, poise and relaxed state, motionless state of the body, and relaxed and comfortable state of the body is asana. Then he explains the method. So, in this next sutra, he says, Prayatna Shaithilyata Ananta Samapatibhyam. He says these are the two tricks, two steps of practicing yoga that you should not stretch. Should not stretch your body too much. You should not leave the body too loose. It should be in between so that your mind is not going into anxiety. Mind does not react in practicing any posture, and you do not fall into laziness if you leave the body too loose. And when that mind is looking inside the head in the space during the practice of asana, that is what the method is. Now you will be surprised. You know that in Himalayas, many yoga masters live there. So we have only 10 feet snow, sometimes 20 feet snow. It's very cold there. And they used to live in the cave without any problem. Why? Because the benefit of the asana, when you do regular practice, there is a specific way, not by different styles. When you practice these asana, you do not feel cold, you do not feel heat. That is how they survived for hundreds of years, living into the cave when you have 10 feet snow. Even in the summer, you have about 2 or 3 feet of snow. And they are totally cut from the main society, at least for 6 months in the winter. Totally alone. So, anyhow, EW, the third point, EW means Eastern wisdom, includes yoga, tantra, mindfulness, meditation. Huh? Mindfulness, meditation. Now, going further, schools of yoga is whole yoga, aims at discovery of the real self. So let us go little down, and then we will understand every text in the teaching, heading of the text in teaching. So, what is the text? Have you heard about manual? These texts of yoga are manuals of yoga. What manuals contains? They contain principle, they contain programs and practices of yoga. They teach us how to make our life a life of glory, life of happiness. So, how to start the journey of yoga? First, we become a student of life. What is the meaning of student of life? We become a qualified seeker. What is the meaning of becoming a qualified seeker? Do you know how to operate your computer? Yes. Same way, we should also earn some qualification to treat the path of yoga. So, that is what is the meaning of becoming a seeker. And I have repeated many a times, I'm still repeating, always listen to the teacher and learn the principles. Then we have to think how to apply those principles in life. Then we should practice to experience, so that experience to change our attitude and behavior. I've repeated many a times, attitude, behavior changes personality. Personality changes our life, and when your life changes, you find that you become a good person to yourself. Now you don't want to enter into any kind of anxiety, craving, greed. Your mind is totally calm, cheerful. Now we are going little deeper. Text. How many? There are more than 3,000 texts. Like you study in a school, so maybe you have two texts for science, you have one text for history, other like this. So, like this, there are 3,000 texts of yoga. Think of it, 3,000 texts and millions of pages. So, what are the names of those texts? So, in the first bullet point, these are the names of the text: Veda, Aranyaka, Samhita, Upanishad, Gita, Sutra, Smriti, Purana. What did I say? Are groups of the text. Means what? Veda, when I say Veda, is one set of text. It has four Vedas. Aranyaka is another group of text. It has more than 10 group of text. Samhita, it has more than, I would say, 40 group of text. Upanishad, 100 text. Gita, we have more than 8 Gitas. Sutra, we have more than 6 books of Sutra. We have Smriti, that is another name of the text. We have, I think, more than 50 Smritis. And then we have Purana. We have 18 Purana texts. So it is just for the sake of reference and also remembering. Veda, Aranyaka, Samhita, Upanishad, Gita, Sutra, Smriti, Purana are groups of text. So Veda, there are 4 Vedas. Aranyaka, there are more than 10 Aranyaka texts. There are many Samhita texts that explains the mantra. When we say mantra Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, that is also coming from the Samhita. Then there are many Brahmin texts. Brahmin text talks in detail about rites and rituals. There are more than 100 Upanishads. There are more than 8 Gita texts. There are sutras, not only Patanjali Yoga Sutra, but we have many sutra like Yoga Sutra, Sankhya Sutra, Brahma Sutra, Bhakti Sutra. And when we say Purana, we have 18 texts. Then we have many Hatha Yoga texts like Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Gheranda Samhita, Goraksha Samhita. And the Buddhist text is known as Dhammapad. And in Tantra, we have more than 700 texts. Clear? This is just for the sake of just you remember the names. Even you remember the name of couple of them would be good. So there are two group of the text. Fundamentally, all the 3,000 texts can be divided into two groups. First group is known as Shruti text. What is Shruti? You know what happens? We have done lot of meditation practices. So when you sit in deep meditation for hours together, the mind is totally cut off from the world. Then what happens? The knowledge enters into the mind from the real self. You need not to even think of it. That knowledge enters into deep meditation. And those masters remembered those knowledge and then they wrote the text which is known as Veda. What it proves? The knowledge is always inside. The real knowledge is always inside. Think of it. Do you dream of that? Let the knowledge come from inside me. Then you should practice meditation every day. Clear? Shruti text. Understanding Shruti text. So, under the Shruti text, Veda comes, Aranyaka, Samhita, Upanishad. We have studied that there are many group of texts. Veda, Aranyaka, Samhita, and Upanishad were written after the knowledge entered into the mind in deep meditation. And when you remember, say you are learning from me, then you continue to do the practice, you experience the change, and then you write a book. That becomes the Smriti text, another group of the text, right? No worries, Hayden. If your brother wants to listen to me, let him also listen. If he has any question, he can ask any question. So, Smriti text. So, Veda text, I have given Aranyaka text. Now, see, now we are going little down. What are the four Veda? Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sam Veda, Athar Veda. These are the four main texts. Comes under Veda. Aranyaka. Aranyaka. Now understand what is the meaning of Veda. Veda means knowledge, wisdom. Knowledge of what? Not knowledge of pasta, knowledge of other anything outside. It is the knowledge of real self. So that is what the Veda means, wisdom, knowledge. Aranyaka. You'll be surprised the way the masters have named the text. So Aranyaka means forest, woods. So what happened? Many people practices asana, performed all the rituals. They were not happy. They were not satisfied. And then they went to the forest for a longer and deeper meditation practices. They went into the Himalayas and they said, now nobody will come here. And then they were sitting in meditation for hours and hours together, for years and years. I know two masters, and especially my master also lived at the height of 13,000 feet above the sea in the Himalayas. So there he lived for at least 8 years in solitude, totally lonely. And after 8 years, he came down. That's why we used to go when uh, when the snow melted in the summer. Then we used to see him, and after that, again he used to live into the cave in the Himalayas. I have seen that cave many, many times. I have lived into that cave. My master allowed me to stay there. So Aranyaka means forest. Forest means that you cut yourself completely. That is a very higher practice. So masters have written many Aranyaka texts. So you see that there are three Aranyaka texts. Katha, Atraye, Brahad Aranyaka. I have written the name. Now comes the Samhita text. What is the Samhita text? Samhita means to put together a collection of verses, collection of many principles. Samhita. Samhita, the meaning of the Samhita means to put together, collection. A basket where you keep different fruits together. So I have written the names of many Samhita texts. You see that Ashtavakra Samhita, Bhragu Samhita, Charak Samhita, Gherand Samhita. So these are known as the sum of the names of the text. So it is better you read it every day for a couple of days, and after that you will remember. Then comes the Brahmin text. What are the Brahmin texts? They are collection of hymns. Hymns or hymns. They are also collection of hymns, the mantras that can be chanted and remembered. So I have named the two Brahmin texts. Then comes the Upanishad. What is Upanishad? The meaning of the Upanishad means the student sitting near the teacher and learning. That is the meaning of Upanishad. Upanishad meaning, huh? And so what happened? That a student is learning under a teacher, sitting near a teacher for years and years. And then what happens? Whatever the question the student asked and the answer given by the master were written in the form of a book. They are known as Upanishads. There are many Upanishads, 108 Upanishad. Some people say we have 365 Upanishad texts. So they are in the form of a question and answer. So as a student, you go to the teacher and you say, I have anxiety, and then the master gives the answer and the practice. So that forms a part of the book. When they were written? Almost 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. Then comes the Sutra. What is Sutra? Sutra in Sanskrit, if we literally translate into English, it becomes thread. Have you seen the thread and did you try to open the thread? There are many thin layers. They are intertwined together. Huh? They are one over the overlapping together. Even very thin thread. If you carefully open it, you will find very thin layers. So why the group of the text is known as sutra? That in one line, in one phrase, you have many principles intertwined together. So that is what is Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Did you understand the meaning of the sutra in the sutra text? Sutra means the thread. It is like chemistry formula. What is H2O? H2O is a formula, a sutra of what? Of water. H2O. So what? So now if you open H2O through understanding chemistry, so H2 means two atoms of hydrogen, and O means oxygen. So water is made up of from two atoms of hydrogen, one atom of oxygen. That is why it is known as sutra. The same way, what the sutra in Sanskrit, written by Patanjali, Yoga Sutra. That is why it is known as Yoga Sutra. 195 formulas. So when it is a formula, the teacher has to open that formula to make a student understand. So these sutras, either in the form of a phrase or in the form of a sentence or simply half a liner, that explains many principles. You can also understand the sutra is like a zip file. You know, zip file, where it contains, when you open the zip file, you can open many files. Zip is a folder, and in that folder, it contains many files. So sutra is like a zip file. When the teacher, you sit with the teacher, you understand the principles, and he opens the zip file, and you only you understand. Sthir sukham asanam. You see, I just explained. That is the meaning, that is the definition of asana. Sthir, one word, sukham, second word, asanam, third word, asana, posture. And then he says sthirata, steadiness, sukham, peaceful, calm. Only three words he used. So we have to open. When the body becomes steady, when the mind is living within, when the mind is living within, then what happens? Then the mind is calm and restful. So it means any position of the body explained in yoga, that becomes asana, which has two factors, the steadiness and calmness in the mind. Steadiness in the body, calmness in the mind. So we have the sutra Gita. Now the group of Gita. Gita means what? Gita means poetry. So many masters have written yoga discipline in a poetical form, in the form of a song. It can easily be remembered, it can easily be understood. Have you seen lot of advertisements on the television? For a product they start singing, and we still remember those ads. Do you remember any ad? Mind immediately remembers those ads. That's why they in a poetical form. There are many texts of in Gita. I have written Bhagavad Gita, Ashtavakra Gita, Guru Gita, Ganesh Gita, Avdhut Gita. So, in our journey, in our training, we will study briefly Bhagavad Gita, one most important text, Yoga Sutra. We will also study Hatha Yoga Pradipika and Gheranda Samhita. We will study Dhammapad, and we will study the principles from other imported texts. So, today we will cover briefly about Patanjali. Patanjali is the name of the master. Does the name look crazy? No, we don't have name like this. Patanjali. Now, every Sanskrit word has multiple meaning. Patanjali was a great master of yoga. He is known as the father of Eastern psychology. So, in Yoga Sutra, he has written 195 formulas sutra. Sometime people say that he has written 196 sutras. Sometime, normally the majority of the people believe that he has written 195 formulas in 4 chapters. Now, one Patanjali lived. He lived 400 BC. 400 BC means you add, whenever you see the BC, you add the current year with that number, and you get an idea. So almost 2021 plus 400, 2500 BC or 2400 BC, 2400 years old, right? So how to study the Yoga Sutra? That is very important. Just take a simple example. I studied chemistry in my undergraduation, and I had a fascination of the chemistry, and I still remember a lot of principles in the chemistry. So that is how I explained you about H2O. What is H2SO4? What is NaCl? Do you know? You eat every day.
Table salt?
Yes, table salt, sodium chloride. So if I have to study chemistry, these formulas, I have to study the basics of chemistry. And who explains the basics of chemistry? The scientists who have studied chemistry. Same way, how to study the Yoga Sutra? Who have studied the yoga at length, who can make us understand all these formulas of Yoga Sutras. So, Yoga Sutra always to be studied with the commentator who wrote the commentary on Yoga Sutra. And who wrote the commentary on Yoga Sutra? Who wrote the commentary? It is Vyasa. Great masters wrote commentary on Yoga Sutra because they studied, they practiced, they validated the principles of yoga in the Yoga Sutra. So the next question comes, who wrote commentary on Yoga Sutra? Many great masters. Who are the masters? Ved Vyasa, one master. King Bhoja wrote another commentary. Vachaspati Mishra wrote another different commentary. The most important commentary written by Ved Vyasa. So, how to understand and study Yoga Sutra? We have to take the help of another text which is written by Ved Vyasa. So, the commentary by Ved Vyasa is known as Commentary on Yoga Sutra. So, when we study the commentary of Ved Vyasa, we can understand the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. There are how many chapters in the Yoga Sutra? There are 4 chapters in Yoga Sutra. 4 chapters, 195 formulas. Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Commentator, the main commentator is Ved Vyasa. The Vyasa commentary should we, if we understand, if we study Vyasa commentary, then only we can understand Yoga Sutra clearly. So now, first chapter. I have been giving classes on the first chapter of Yoga Sutra on Mondays and Thursdays from 8 to 9. If you want to join, you can also join if you have time. So I teach higher meditation practices. I explain the sutra and then in 1 hour session. So for you guys, it is totally, for you girls, sorry, it is totally free. If you are interested, send an email, then I will put you into the invite list. You can join there. 8 to 9 on Monday and 8 to 9 on Thursdays. So the first chapter explains everything about the mind, what it means. Do you experience anxiety sometime, reaction, upset? So the Patanjali explains why do you feel, what is the cause, what is the remedy, how to practice, what to practice. Do you want to discover inner peace and happiness? It tells you what is that inner peace and happiness, what are the practices that you should be doing. So I am teaching that to the adults. So it does not mean that it is only meant for adults who are wise and intelligent like you girls. You can also join. Just send an email. Today is Tuesday. Now coming day after tomorrow, 8 to 9. Second chapter explains about sadhana pada. So, do you know the Ashtanga Yoga? 8-limbed path of yoga that is explained in the second chapter. The second chapter also explains how to discipline the mind, how to do the self study, and how to unite with a real self. That is the second chapter. The third chapter explains, you may be interested. What is that? It gives you many, how to get different powers of the mind, how to read the mind of others. Do you want to do that? Then you have to practice meditation every day. Sometime maybe an hour, sometime maybe 2 hours. I can tell you. So, Patanjali in the third chapter explains in detail about the different powers of the mind that we can attain by different practices. Fourth chapter covers what is? Fourth chapter covers everything about the real self. What is real self? How to attain it? How to absorb into the deeper meditation to find the real self. Now, do you see Patanjali? I have written codifier of yoga. Codify. When I say H2O, it is codification of water. H2SO4, it is codification of sulfuric acid. NaCl, codify. Huh? You create something like an acronym. So, Patanjali, because he created Yoga Sutra, he is known as codifier of yoga. He is not known as originator of yoga. Are you understanding? Originator, who is originator of yoga? Krishna and Shiva. And who is the codifier of yoga? Patanjali. So sometimes people make a mistake. They say, no, Patanjali is the originator of yoga. No. Patanjali lived only 2500 years ago, and the originator of yoga lived 6 to 7,000 years ago. Before Patanjali, we had more than 2,000 masters. So how he can be the originator of yoga? Now I made in italics 5 phrases. Read it carefully. First, yoga is one of the 8 systems of Eastern wisdom. It means in Eastern wisdom, there are 8 different schools and systems, out of which yoga is one. We make approximately the year when the yoga was discovered, but no one exactly knows when tradition of yoga started. Third point, yoga understands that we human being is in transition. What is the meaning of transition? Have you seen on the airport transit? Oh, the same word, transition. What is transition in human life? Do I experience anxiety, stress, duality, conflict? So I can transition from anxiety, conflict to peace and happiness. That is why we say human being in transition. Can you tell me any human being who wants to live in anxiety, anger, greed all the time? No. Everyone wants happiness, but he doesn't know the path. So he doesn't know the path. Therefore, we say human being is in yoga realizes. What yoga realizes? When I am suffering, I am in a transition. If I take up the path of yoga, I can get rid of it. Clear? Any issue? Yoga shows the path to transcend all limitations. What is limitation? You eat pasta, you get a pleasure for a few minutes and you forget it. You sleep. How many hours? 6, 7 hours of sleep. Sometime after waking up, you feel still tired. Sometime you feel rested. So, can I break the limitation? What is that limitation? Okay, I sleep for 5 hours, but I want to live into peace all the time, 24 by 7. I have broken the limitation. Yoga teaches us that. One example. And ultimately, yoga is a discipline that aims at self discovery. I have talked about again and again. Now, going to the next title, Patanjali, great master, father of Eastern psychology. We masters, when we learnt it from our own masters, we are asked to chant this, repeat this mantra. This mantra, this verse is written by a great commentator of Patanjali Yoga Sutra. I have just explained. We have to study the commentary of the Yoga Sutra to understand Yoga Sutra. So, Yogena Chitasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vedyakena Yopa Karotam Pravaram Muninam Patanjali Natosmi. So, what is the meaning? The meaning is that he was such a great master that many people started worshipping him as a god. He was not a god, he was a human being, but he was a genius. So, the commentary given by the master, he says, you can read it. I salute with my hands together to the great master Patanjali. What he says in the verse? If you want to remove the impurities of the mind through yoga that aims at inner peace, happiness, love, and wisdom. He says, remove the impurities of the mind. What are the impurities of the mind? I get upset easily. I react easily. I suffer. I experience extreme fatigue. So these are the impurities of the mind. Do you feel sleepy? Do you feel bored, Hayden? No. Little bit. So he said, removing the impurities of the mind, we practice yoga. Remove the impurities of the speech, we should learn and understand the grammar. Any grammar of any language. We remove the impurities of the body. We should study Ayurveda. Ayurveda, herbal medicine. It all depends on herbs. So when we say Ayurveda, Ayurveda means it always teaches which herb to take to boost your immunity. So majority of the pills that you see in the market, the fundamental principles comes from Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a science that has understood the nature properties of more than 5,000 plants, trees, seeds, stems, roots. We have a very big book that which particular stem, branch, tree, fruit help you to have can remove the problem of digestion, can remove the problem of. So what he says, why we are talking of this? Remove the impurities of the mind by yoga, remove the impurities of speech by learning the language and its grammar, and remove the impurities of the body by the Ayurveda. Why we say this? Because Patanjali is expert in all the three areas. Patanjali is expert in not only in the Ayurveda, he was a great grammar expert and he was already master of yoga. Now ask me. Now last take you can read that page number 11, the last page. So the master says by the regular practice of yoga, we can remove the physical suffering, we can remove the mental suffering, and we can remove the suffering caused by the nature if we do the practice regularly. that is all about Patanjali Yoga Sutra. We will study little bit about Gita and also about other texts. So, tell me what is the takeaway from today's lesson?
Oh, there are a lot of texts that we can study to understand yoga and ourselves better.
Yes, yes. And even if we have to study one text, we should study under a teacher. And that teacher should be well versed with these texts. It is not the teacher comes and says, okay, forget about everything about Patanjali. I will teach my own yoga. There is no your yoga and my yoga. So we should always ask the teacher from which text you are teaching, which commentary you are teaching, then it will be authentic yoga. Huh? Say, for example, H2O, you just said it is the formula for water. And then I say, I will teach a new chemistry. And then I say, N2O is water. That is wrong. That is wrong. The same thing also happens in our profession. Many people say, this is my meditation, this is your meditation. Your meditation is worse, my meditation is good. So there is no meditation belongs to me or yours. The asanas are the same, breathing practices are the same, principles are the same. So we have to understand. We have to always ask the teacher from which text you are teaching, what is that ancient text, what the principle says, explain the principle, make me understand. Then you can pick up that teacher who is well versed with the ancient text. Then only we can understand the real yoga. Any comment, Hayden? So you read it and you also find some assignments therein. You read, answer those questions, and send it to me.